What's going on, everybody? Good morning and happy Thursday, peeps. DK Show up on the air on your radio dials of 105.1 FM and 790 AM. Also available online, sportstalk1051.com. You got your smart speakers, got the app, video stream also up and rolling right now. Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. Appreciate you making us part of your starts on this Thursday morning of March 7th. What do we got on the game plan for us this morning? Brandon Burr's going to be joining us starting next hour, switching it up again for the final week here because we got state girls basketball coming at you. McDonald Catholic Central will be going at it tonight. Baldwin Woodville in action this afternoon. So best of luck to some of our local teams over there. Also, boys high school basketball playoffs continues tonight too. You got Elk Mound taking on GET, Gale Electric Trepolo. Cameron taking on Unity. Durand, Arkansas takes on Cross Aquinas. Clare Manual Lutheran taking on Solon Springs. Owen Withy going up against Winter. So we got basketball games going on tonight, but with states for McDonald tonight, Brandon will be hopping in, starting in the 7 o'clock hour. He'll be joining us then. So we got that. Going to continue our little free agency primer stuff, but as Brandon and I once in a while on the Man Cave podcast, we will do a top 5 plus. We're going to do a top 5 plus live today, so we're going to do it maybe in the 8 o'clock hour, maybe 7 o'clock hour. We'll see how it all goes here. But we want some of your picks on this thing, all right? So what we're going to do for our top 5 is, so Brandon, as you know, is a Vikings fan. I'm a Packers fan. Free agency going to begin here, coming up next week. The top 5 worst free agent signings by our favorite teams. Okay. We know especially for Green Bay, we know the top 2. Reggie White, Charles Woodson, maybe throw in a couple other ones in there. But everybody, majority's going to agree it's Reggie for Green Bay, right? So that's easy. That's easy. But what about the worst ones? What are the worst free agent signings from your favorite football team with free agency coming up here? Maybe the cautionary tales. Is that the best way to kind of term it? Maybe the cautionary tales out there, because we all want our teams to be, for the most part, active in free agency and want to make those big splashy moves and such. But we got some hindsight 2020 didn't work out too well. So think about that for a little bit. Hit me up with a text on that Shoe Doctors bullpen line at 715-830-1912 or Twitter at DANKASPER, Facebook.com/Kasper Sports as well. Or hit us up on the video stream. So we'll get to that coming up a little bit. But I want to throw that out to you right away so you can start to think about it. Your top 5 worst, not the best. We know we got a good idea who's the best for Green Bay. Probably your top 2. That's easy. How about the worst? Top 5. So we got that. Hoops wise, Bucks falling last night. Their 6-game winning streak put to an end by Golden State last night, 125-90. Giannis did play in the game. So he was active, played 33 minutes in the game, 23 points, 6 assists, 7 rebounds. Dame, 20 points, 6 assists. Bobby Portis, back-to-back games where he's really shown in the offensive column there. 20 points for Bobby, but Bucks just shooting 28.2% from 3, 38.2% overall from the field. You had a Golden State team that shot 56% from the field and 48.7 from 3. Steph Curry, 6 of 10 from deep, 29 points to lead all scorers. Bucks tried to make a little bit of a comeback there, but the Dubs, Golden State Warriors, outscoring the Bucks 32-9 in the 4th. Yeah, not bad. So, off day for the Bucks today before they take on the Lakers as they continue their West Coast trip here for Game 2 of this West Coast trip. Coming up again tomorrow. UConn beating Marquette last night as well, although this one was a little bit closer. 74-67 win for UConn. Marquette falling to 22-8 on the season. I think more people were kind of goo goo gagaing about who was sitting courtside at that game. It was Matt LaFleur and Chicago Bears head coach Matt Eberflus hanging out, watching the game. That was like all over Twitter and such, and Facebook and that. But speaking of which, the Badgers are back in action tonight too, as they take on Rutgers for the final regular season home game. Final home game at the Kohl Center for this year for the Badgers. So they've got that game at 6 p.m. tonight. They finish up their regular season on the road against Purdue on Sunday. So I think you could say this is probably a big game for the Badgers to get a W. Get this win for crying out loud. Got to get the win. So we'll talk some hoops and such, and take a look at this game here, and just maybe kind of the importance of it, kind of where everything's standing right now in terms of the Big Ten conference tournament and such. But yeah, big game because I'm not putting a whole lot of confidence into Sunday's game, and I don't think I'm the only one with that. So we got that coming up. We'll throw in a little baseball talk here too. Brewers doubleheader, split squad yesterday in spring training. Game 1, they beat Cincinnati 2-0. Game 2, tied up against Cleveland 3-3. So Brewers back at it today, going up against the White Sox. Aaron Ashby is going to be the quote-unquote initial outgetter. So we'll throw some baseball talk in here since we've got Brandon hopping on with us as we inch a little bit closer and closer to opening day, because today's the 7th. Math tells me 3 weeks from today is opening day. Brewers already kind of making some, trimming their roster here a little bit. Nothing too extreme or shocking or anything like that. But 3 weeks from today, baby, we got opening day. Opening day. So yeah, we'll get to that. We didn't get to do it last week, so we'll flip-flop it here. We'll do a cream of the crop. We'll do a cream of the crop. We usually do that on Fridays with Brandon, but we'll move it up today for him. Also, we'll do the local sports roundup, as I mentioned a little bit earlier, but we'll break it down from this past week and look ahead to some state action and all that stuff. So we'll get to the local sports roundup. Let's say we'll do that at 8:05, and we'll do our free agent one in the 7 o'clock hour. And then we'll catch up with Jake Boaks, our conservation warden. But if you've got any questions for Jake, hit me up with that text. That's the easiest. That's the quickest way, so I can collect them and get those over to Jake. So again, just hit me up on that texting line with a question if you have one for Jake Boaks, our DNR warden buddy, for our outdoor tidbits this morning. But got spring turkey tags going up for sale, the extra ones for next week. I got my alarm on my phone. Make sure I grab them. So make sure you just wait an extra 5 minutes just to make sure I get my own, and then you could go ahead and grab yours. But we'll catch up with Jake coming up at about 8:30 this morning. So pitter patter, let's get at her, shall we? Let's get things rolling here this morning. We'll touch on a little bit of everything. We'll talk some hoops to open up things. Bucks falling last night. Marquette falling. Badgers in action tonight. Talking a little hoops there. Final game at the Kohl Center. Just how big is this game? Because they got to play Purdue on Sunday. Yeah, I think it's pretty darn big there. But also that question I threw out there. We'll continue our free agency primer as well. Boy, oh boy, the Buffalo Bills making plethora of moves yesterday, trying to get under that salary cap, or trying to get into a better salary cap position. But we'll kind of continue our free agency primer, highlight maybe a few players here that could be some nice Packers fits, potentially. But that question I threw out there for you, who are your top 5 worst Packers free agent signings? Or if you're a Vikings fan, Bears fan, Lions fan, who are they? All right. Let us know. We'll get to ours, Brandon and my picks coming up in the next hour. But I want to see maybe I missed one. Maybe one of you've got one out there that I kind of missed. But all right, let's get things rolling here. We'll get the lead off started. We'll talk some hoops. A lot of you are already chiming in on the football one. No big surprise there. So we'll get to some of your picks coming up after these few words. Tomorrow is the day we'll launch signups, reveal the dates for the fourth annual Casper Classic, unless you are a member of the fan cave, because you're going to get the info sent to you later this morning. You're going to get a heads up here, but we got something new that literally we just kind of finalized yesterday, that we're adding to the fourth annual Casper Classic. So make sure you check your emails if you are a member of the fan cave, and take advantage of the early bird pricing and such. But the battle for title belts, who's going to win the title belts this year, is going to be officially underway starting tomorrow with the signups. So hoping to fill up again. We've sold out every single year. So again, if you want to make sure you reserve your spot, your tea time, if you will, make sure you sign up right away. All right. So check your emails if you are a member. If you're not, you have to check it for tomorrow when we launch it out there. But we got something new. And if you are a member of that fan cave, you're gonna get the first heads up over there too. Something kind of big. So, all right. Speaking of which, too, we want to make sure that you get your seat on the bus for the Milwaukee home opener against Minnesota coming up on April 2nd. As we mentioned, opening day is 3 weeks, but Milwaukee's home opener coming up against the team just across the border from us, Minnesota over there. So if you want to reserve your spot on the bus with us and head on down to the home opener, just head to wiscotrips.com or sportstalk1051.com and reserve your seats. Your ticket includes a game ticket on a Johnsonville party deck. Got a tailgating party beforehand, motor coach transportation, all that stuff there. So get your ticket before it's too late. Few texts to get to here. Who we threw out there to begin with, and Brandon and I will get our top 5 coming up in the next hour here. But the top 5 worst Packers free agent signings of all time. Again, free agents, not draft picks, not trades. A couple of you thrown in who were trades, or draft picks on here too. So again, looking at free agent signings over there. But we got some Martellus Bennett picks. We've got some Jimmy Graham picks over there too. So those are a couple of them right now. Keep those coming. I'll just say those two are on my list here. But are either one of those number one? Are either of those number one? We'll see. What else we got? G-Man saying Bucks will win the next game with LA, and Bucky will win tonight. Also, another question that came in. I don't know, no name attached to this, so I apologize for not giving you any credit for this question, texter. But texter asked, do you think, with the Packers still not making any announcements or moves with Bakhtiari or Campbell, that maybe the Packers are looking at keeping both of those players? Bakhtiari, no. I still feel like no. Unless there's some huge, unless they can work out something that would just be like huge pay cut and that stuff. But I still have my doubts on it. The Campbell one, maybe there's a shot, because one, we know that probably need some linebacker depth. Do they feel like Campbell's a guy that can fill in on that weak side line, or that strong side linebacker, that Sam linebacker? Assuming if we're just operating under the basic 4-3 style defense, we know majority might be 4-2-5 with nickel corners and such. But if we're operating under the basic 4-3, Packers feel like that Devondre Campbell can be a guy that plays that strong side, that Sam linebacker over there. Then maybe, I mean, he's going to be 31 when the season comes up here. they would have a lower dead cap hit if they potentially held on to him for another year, because right now, this is according to Spot Track. If the Packers now Campbell's got a $14 million cap hit. That's a little too rich for my blood if it were me. I mean, it's skyrocketed. Last year his cap hit was 5.5 if we're rounding. It's jumped up to a 14.2. Now, if the Packers were to move on from him, they're saving a little less than $3 million. So is it a big chunk? No, it's not, but still you're saving a couple million. If they held on to him for another year, then you're talking about saving a little, about four-ish, a little over $4 million. So maybe there's a possibility. I would say if I had to pick between the two to answer your question, which one's more likely to be back with the team next year, I would say Campbell. I would say Devondre Campbell. But I think they got to do something to maybe lower that cap hit here a little bit too. That's just me. That's considering the injuries and his first year he came out and right away on the scene, all pro. Had a solid year. Hasn't played, got that huge contract afterwards. Injuries and plays kind of not been up to that level again, but hey, maybe they view this change in defense as something that can help them out a little bit. But I think if they're going to keep Campbell, they got to work on something to maybe lower that cap hit here a little bit, because that's a little too much for me. But according to overthecap.com right now, if you're looking at it, Packers have about $13.6 million in cap space. And I still feel like that the Bakhtiari move is probably going to come at some point before the league year opens next year. I mean, Goody even pretty much said that at the combine, that they're going to, figure that out before the league year opens and such. So, I mean, you're talking about potentially opening up $20 million. And if this is the team that wants to be aggressive in free agency and add some players and add a couple players here or there, especially maybe from the safety position, they've got to open up some of that space by moving on from Bakhtiari, unless they've got something working up their sleeve. But I don't know. I'd be shocked if Bakhtiari is still lining up for the Packers next year. It's just my opinion. But I think long answer to the question there. The fact that we're less than next week and none of those moves are being made, I think that tells us more, maybe if I had to pick, about them keeping Campbell than it would about Bakhtiari. They just can't keep Bakhtiari at that number. They just can't. There's no way they can operate this year with that cap hit with Bakhtiari over there. So appreciate the question though. Appreciate you sending that on over. Anybody else got other stuff? Send them on over. Okay. All right. Let's hit up a little bit of hoops before we get to really deep dive into some free agency primer, for top 5 worst free agent signings, that sort of stuff. Bucks last night falling to the Warriors, 125-90. The Warriors kind of bouncing back after Sunday's game against where am I looking at? What is this? Oh, my apologies. I got sidetracked there. But the Warriors bouncing back after getting shellacked by Boston on Sunday with that 125-90 victory over the Bucks last night. 42-13 run by the Warriors to close that game. The Bucks at one point got it to within 6. But after that, it turned ugly. Let's be real. Let's just call it what it is. It was ugly. 42-13 run. Bucks just 9 points in the fourth quarter there. Warriors pulling a little Celtics there. What Celtics did to the Warriors on Sunday, I guess. But I don't want to overreact too much to that loss. I think at least one thing that I take away from the game last night was Giannis back on the court, back to playing. I know there was some talk about, could he be out for a little bit just to make sure his Achilles is good and nothing too serious and such. But guy played over 30 minutes in the game last night, led his team in scoring with 23. So, that again, I don't really want to overreact too much from this one game here. So, I mean, they're 6-1 now from the All-Star break. They've got the Lakers coming up here on Friday. Clippers again in a rematch on Sunday, and then Sacramento next Tuesday before returning home. This is a stretch. How many times have we said this? It's a broken record, but this is the portion of the schedule. This is these next few weeks that we've looked at for this Bucks team to see. Okay, what are you made of? This is going to give us that litmus test, that gauge of what they're going to look like come postseason time. You got a Golden State team that's battling for playoff positioning. Lakers are going to be the same way. Clippers trying to stay in that upper tier, if you will, in the Western Conference. They've fallen off a little bit here. Sacramento's going to be a playoff team. Philly trying to fight to maybe stay in that top 6. Phoenix fighting for playoff positioning. I mean, you look at the Western Conference right now. This is where I look at a lot of these games here for the Bucks, on at least in the beginning portion of this month. It's kind of like little playoff feel in some of these Western Conference games, because some teams are fighting for positioning. You can kind of break it down in different quarters or different halves here, because the top 4, Minnesota and OKC sitting there at the top, 43-19. Denver's a game back. Clippers bouncing back last night with a win against Houston. Didn't look good for a little bit. I only know that because Hudson was watching before bed. But Clippers are 2.5 back from that top seed. Then you got your next few actually. New Orleans is sitting in that 5 spot. And that's a team that's playing incredibly well. And that's a team that's coming up on this schedule for the Bucks at towards the end of the month here too. But you got New Orleans, who's 6 back, but right behind them is Phoenix in that 6 spot. And then you got the play-ins. Sacramento, half game out. Dallas, Golden State, Lakers. These teams fighting for positioning right now. And the Bucks are going up against these teams. Bucks are going up against a Lakers team that's holding on to that 10th spot. They're up 5.5 to the next closest one. But they want to move up a little bit more. They want to probably get in that top 6, avoid a play-in. Clippers coming up on Sunday, trying to squeak into that maybe top 3, top 2. Try to get to a 1. Sacramento, same thing, trying to maybe get in that top 6. So not only are you going up against some playoff teams coming up here, but you're going up against Western Conference playoff teams here who are battling for some positioning and kind of battling kind of like it's the playoffs for them right now. That's why this, to me, is such a intriguing, not only a tough month for the Bucks coming up here, but such an intriguing one too, because you're going up against teams that are kind of maybe in a little bit of playoff mode here because they're fighting for positioning. And the same could be said for the Bucks too. They're not going to get the 1 seed unless Boston just completely tanks it. But they're kind of fighting for between 2 and 3 with Cleveland right now. May not be the biggest difference, but the biggest difference in that is Milwaukee. If you're a 2 seed, you're going to be playing somebody from the play-in. If you're a 3 seed, you already know who you're playing. And right now it'd be Miami. But again, that's gone back and forth. Philly is just a half game back from them. Indiana, who's in the 8th, 1 game back. So you kind of got this playoff type feel. Bucks for a little bit, but a lot of their opponents coming up on this portion of their schedule. Marquette, though, switching over to some college hoops here. Marquette At least it wasn't a blowout like the last time they faced UConn. Hey, competitive. I mean, I don't want to dumb it down or anything like that, but UConn jumped out to an 11-point lead at the half. Marquette tried clawing its way back there, just couldn't do it enough. They're going to be. I think Marquette's still going to be a 2, at worst a 3 seed in the upcoming tournament. They got Xavier coming up to wrap up their regular season. Then you'll have the Big East tournament. I think they can. Lenardi and those guys are way smarter than me. But I think with back-to-back losses now against ranked opponents, maybe they drop down to a 3 seed. But potentially could move up to a 2 seed, depending on how they do in the Big East conference tournament coming up here. But I think Marquette is going to be a weird team when it comes to making picks for brackets, because you look at their wins and their losses. You look at, okay, so they've beaten teams like Providence, St. John's, Georgetown, Butler, Xavier. Looking recently here, Nova back end of January. But recently they've lost to UConn twice, Creighton. There's going to be a little chit chat about Marquette, about can they beat some of the top teams. Their last, what would you say their last big time win might have been back in December when they beat Creighton? 72-67. Then they followed up where Seton Hall beat them. Then Butler beat them. I think Marquette is going to be one of those tough teams to try to pick when it gets to turn. Beginning of the year, they beat Kansas. They beat Illinois. Then they lose to Wisconsin. To me, Marquette is I think they got all the talent in the world. It's just, what version are we going to see? Is this a team that can make a deep run in this tournament? Can they, get to the Sweet 16? But once you're going up against some of these tougher teams, is Marquette a team that can go toe-to-toe with some of these better teams if they continue to advance through the tournament? I hope Marquette plays well and advances well through or deep into the tournament. But I think you're going to start to hear from some people, and maybe they can silence some of that depending on how they do in their conference tournament and such. But I think you're going to start to hear some people kind of questioning Marquette, like, okay, is this a team that can beat some of the better teams if they got to face them come tournament time? Or is this a team that's just kind of beating up on some of the mid to lower teams in the Big East Conference right now? Now, I hope Marquette, again, is a team that can advance deep into the tournament. But now you look at these back-to-back losses against ranked opponents. Actually, and then you factor in the UConn one February 17th. Wisconsin, meanwhile, I think tonight's a huge, huge game for the Badgers. 2 more games left in the regular season. They've got Rutgers at home, final game at the Kohl Center. Huge because I ain't giving them a shot to beat Purdue unless Purdue's just kind of resting some peeps, depending on the situation and such, because they got the conference tournament. But to me, for Wisconsin, you need something positive. And I don't know how much positivity you can maybe take away from beating a team like Rutgers. And you need something. You need something right now to, I don't know, hang your hat on. Nah, I don't like using that word. We gotta feel good about something. Like I almost want a freaking dominant performance from Wisconsin tonight. Just go out there and beat Rutgers by like 20 or something. Not this close, biting your fingernail stuff that we have been seeing for what, the last month and a half or so. I want to see this team just go out there and beat them. I mean, Wisconsin, they're 9.5 point favorites for this game tonight. 9.5. I I don't feel good about that, considering what we've seen from Wisconsin so far. I don't. And when you look at it in terms of Big Ten conference standings, again, why to me this is such a huge game for Wisconsin. Currently, they're fifth. Okay, they're 5.5 games back from Purdue, but they're a half game back from Nebraska and Northwestern, two teams that are just above them. Wisconsin is also only just a half game up on Iowa and Michigan State. So you're talking about buys when it comes to Big Ten Conference tournament and such. This is a huge game. You got Northwestern that's taking on Minnesota in their final game. Northwestern fell to Michigan State. And then you've got Nebraska taking on Michigan, which Nebraska should win, but who knows with this Big Ten conference. So, I mean, Wisconsin still could potentially get up to a 3 seed in the Big Ten conference tournament. Possibly. You got Iowa who's behind them. They're taking on Illinois. So, I mean, at that point, you're probably rooting for Illinois just to make sure Iowa doesn't catch you. But you got to get this W tonight. You've got to. I mean, if Wisconsin loses this and they lose their next two games, you're talking about Wisconsin, being down to a potential 7, maybe? Got to win this game and just go out there and just dominate. Pedal to the metal right away throughout the whole game. 9.5 point favorites, so boy, that's a little too high for my blood. A little too high. All right, let's take a quick break here. We'll wrap up the first hour. We'll do a little free agency primer coming up after these few words. The grills are starting to come out of hibernation. Well, for some of us, they never even left. Grilling season's upon us. Do it the right way this year, though. And that means heading to Mike's Star Market on the west side of Eau Claire. Brats, burgers, chickens, beef, whatever you're grilling or putting on the smoker, you want to make sure it's quality. That's what Mike's Star Market gives you. Plus, they now have freeze-dried candy. And get this, if you purchase a bag of Jolly Rancher ones, $1 per bag goes to Backyard Dreams. So what are you waiting for? It is time to do some shopping at Mike's Star Market in Eau Claire. Hey, speaking of which, we a little bit earlier we mentioned that it was 3 weeks from opening day already, believe it or not. But that also means 3 weeks from today, we're going to be over at Hy-Vee for our opening day party. So started up about 11:30 or so, and our good friends from Hy-Vee looking for some ideas too, because it's National Something on a Stick Day. So they're creative over there. They want to make something that put on a stick for opening day over there. So if you got any suggestions, if you got any ideas, let me know. I'll pass it along to them. Okay. So just hit me up with a text, email, that sort of thing. But put it on the calendars. We'll be there about 11:30 for opening day. I know we're going to be doing an express podcast. The Eau Claire Express will be stopping by and such. And we got some other friends that'll be hitting us up. And I think we've got some other stuff coming down the wire as well. So, but hopefully we'll see you there 3 weeks from today. All right. Let's do a little free agency primer, continue our free agency primer, if you will, before we get to our top 5 worst free agent signings by our favorite teams of all time. So we have really hit a lot on safeties, right? I mean, I think if we were to say what's the one position that you want Green Bay to really address or you think is maybe the biggest area of need, I think the majority, maybe not all, but I think the majority would probably go with safety over there. So we've hit a lot on safeties. Let's kind of maybe take a look at some other potential players out there. And I'm actually Matt Schneidman, who covers the Packers for the Athletic. I'll kind of take a look at some of the players because recently he posted 10 players to potentially watch for the Packers here, and I'm going to bring those up here for him. We mentioned, some of these guys we've already mentioned here a little bit. Xavier McKinney, he threw in Saquon Barkley. We mentioned Jordan Fuller already. We mentioned Blackman, the safety. Josh Jacobs is listed on this, and I guess if we're going to throw Saquon Barkley into this, why not Josh Jacobs? Right? I mean, he's a little bit younger. Still, he led the league in rushing in 2022. Caught 90 passes over the past 2 seasons. So I guess if we're going to throw Saquon into the equation, we should throw Josh Jacobs. That, to me, is just going to be interesting to see what Green Bay really does with their running back spot. Are they going to make a play for one of these guys or not? So Jordan Brooks, he mentioned as well. We kind of highlighted Jordan the other day. So Devin White. Now that's somebody I think somebody posted up in our Man Cave Conversations. Devin White is such an intriguing player because when he was a rookie, he came onto the scene and he was really good. He was really good. And he was a guy, let's face it, was kind of a problem for Green Bay whenever Green Bay and Tampa played against a couple times there. But he really fell off last year. He really fell out. Now, was that his play? Was it something else going on? Not sure. But he's only 26. He's only 26. That to me, I'm curious to see what he's going to command on the open market. Is there going to be a team that looks at what he did in the first part of his young career and offers him maybe a little bit more? Be like, okay, we believe he's still that guy, that he's that linebacker, so we're going to offer you this. We believe you could do that same thing that you did the first few years or a couple years in Tampa. So I mean, he's the name, right? Devin White's he's got the name. We remember him with Tampa, right next to Levante David, talking about those two inside linebackers within that defense, right? Talking about those two guys. I'm curious to see what he's actually going to command and what version would you get with him? Maybe he just simply needs a change of scenery. We mentioned Geno Stone. He's on here as well. Matt Schneiderman also puts John Simpson, offensive guard. Offensive guard. Now, we know the Packers are going to address the offensive line, at least in one position. John Runyon Jr. is going to be an unrestricted free agent unless Green Bay agrees to a deal with him coming up here. I feel like, and I know there was a report that there's mutual interest if the price is right. But the fact that he was kind of splitting some snaps with Sean Ryan, I mean, that price would have to be really right, in my opinion, to bring him back. So, did they see enough from Sean Ryan, who they used a third round pick on from a couple years ago, to give him the starting spot? Or do they still look at upgrading or trying to bring in more depth? First of all, they need more depth. I believe that. They need more depth on there. But I think the main question they have to ask and answer themselves is, did we see enough from Sean Ryan to begin the season as a starter, that we believe he could be a starter for us? And if not, guard becomes a need. Now, does that come from free agency? Does it maybe come from the draft? We mentioned the David Bakhtiari thing and Walker and such, and the other question that they're going to have to answer is, do they believe Rasheed Walker could be their long-term starting left tackle? And if not, that one's probably definitely something that they're going to address in the draft. But they need a little bit more depth. And I think you got to factor in too, Josh Myers is going to be a free agent after next year. Josh Myers has been a topic of conversation for the last couple of years in terms of his play. They got to look for their future center at some point too. So they, will they this year look at bringing in some depth from their offensive line, maybe at center, maybe at guard, maybe at tackle, knowing that, hey, maybe there'll be some backups this year, but potential future starters down the road. And if that's the case, I would think that's going to be more coming from the draft. I think the other position that is going to be kind of intriguing to see how Green Bay addresses this offseason is corner. Jair's not going anywhere. Carrington Valentine as a 7th rounder last year, played a lot of snaps, played well. You still got Eric Stokes, who's battling injuries, but he's a former first rounder. I don't know if they're ready to give up on him yet. You got Keyshawn Nixon, who, played that slot nickel corner. But I think, when you bring him back, he's probably you're hoping, or you're really trying to bring him back to be your special teams guy. And I think now with the talk about where the rules, they're trying to get it so they could have more returns, boosts up his stock here a little bit. But I think Green Bay is going to address the corner position. The question that I would have is, like, how early or how high of a need do they feel like they have at that position? Do they feel comfortable that Eric Stokes can stay healthy and play at his rookie level when he was kind of thrown into that because of injuries to Jair and such, and forced to play a lot of snaps? He played well. Then he got hurt his sophomore year. Last year, couldn't get on the field for long term. So do they maybe bring in a veteran? Matt has here C.J. Henderson. Do they look to the draft for that? Henderson was the former 9th overall pick in 2020. Could he be kind of a reclamation project? Possibly. Think they need depth, but the big question is, do they feel like they need another starter? Do they feel like they need another starter? Considering how the defenses are played with nickels and such, I think you need bare minimum from the cornerback spot. Gone are, I think, hey, we just need like 2 top tier starting quarterbacks. Bare minimum 3. I would consider you need 3 starting quarterbacks. Call one a nickel, call 2 the outside. It don't matter to me. You need 3 starting caliber corners. Does Green Bay feel like they've got that with Carrington, Jair, and Eric Stokes? Or do they feel like they need another starter on there? I'd like to see them address it. Maybe not as a first round pick, but I wouldn't mind a veteran like a CJ Henderson type of role. All right, 1 hour in. We got a couple more to go. Let's bring in Brandon Berg coming up after these news updates. Second hour starting right now on this Thursday morning of March 7th. Big thanks for tuning in wherever, however, you may be tuning in from. We've got Mr. Berg in for another Thursday because he's heading over to it's in Madison for after. I know it's been in Green Bay for a long time now, but I still feel like it's in Madison. But heading over later today for some States basketball. So we'll do a quick local sports roundup coming up next hour, but we also got boys basketball in action tonight too with some local teams like Owen Whitney, I know Eau Claire Manual Lutheran,
Durand,
Alcamound,
Arkansas.
Durand, Arkansas. So got boys in action. Of course, you're going down to check out McDonald Central tonight. It's 15 minutes after the conclusion of the 6:30 game.
It'll be about 8:15-ish.
Okay.
Approximately. It'll be the final game of the night tonight.
Gotcha. And I know Baldwin Woodville's this afternoon.
Yeah, they are, I believe, the first game.
Yes, like 1:35, I think it is.
Yeah.
Out there. So, but we'll catch up on all that coming up in just a little bit. Brandon and I will be doing our top 5 live. Do you got your list, sir?
I do.
All right, top 5 worst free agent signings from our favorite teams. Brandon's a Minnesota guy. I'm a Green Bay guy over there. So it's easy for. I don't know if you'd have to tell me if it's easier for Green Bay, but like I didn't want to do the best for Green Bay. That's easy. Reggie White would be one.
Mm-hmm.
Charles Woods is probably going to be up there too. So it's like maybe it makes you think a little bit for the worst ones.
I liked worst. It made a little bit more thinking go into it.
Yeah. So the cautionary tales maybe is the best, more polite way to put it out there too. So, but free agency, as we know, legally, quote, starts next week. For anybody wondering too, like there are some teams who are signing players. They're signing their own or guys who were released already.
Right. If you were released beforehand,
mm-hmm.
You're free to sign anytime.
Yep. That's why Mitchell Trubisky is signing with Buffalo.
Yeah,
Zach Ertz, exactly. So, but starting to hear some stuff out there probably this weekend, Sunday and such. But
not that people were potentially talking early.
Never.
No. Because there's only one time when there's only one tampering period, and that's it. Nobody ever talks ever.
They just work fast.
Right.
They work fast. So, baseball though, I want to talk a little bit baseball with you, Brandon. Here we had the split game yesterday for the Brewers, a win and a tie. If you're keeping track over there, another one coming at you this afternoon against the White Sox. But 3 weeks away from today is opening day for the Crew, as you are donning your Crew swag right now, there, big boys. So, the other day I was talking about Freddie Peralta. And I know Freddie Peralta, one of his goals is 200 innings, to pitch this year. Something he hasn't done before, right? He's never done that yet. But I view Freddie Peralta a little bit like, now tell me if this is the right way or not, but I almost view him as kind of a wild card in terms of the ultimate success for this team. Like, I feel like there's a lot on his shoulders, being the new number 1 guy on there. Yet, I feel like he's a guy, too, that could determine whether this team goes to the postseason or not because of the uncertainty behind him. We know Wade Miley, if you get, 120 innings out of him, you're feeling pretty good about that. Is Freddie Peralta one of those? Wild card's open to interpretation, however you view it. But I view it as in terms of, he could be one of those guys that's a difference from making the postseason or not. How do you think, or is Freddie Peralta one of those guys where a lot is on his shoulders to carry this team this year?
I think so, because I think out of the rotation, he's by far the one that I think is the most established.
Mm-hmm.
By now, I think if he's healthy out there, you kind of have a good idea what you're going to get out of him. And he's somebody that at times, he can be an ace. Like he's done it before, but for periods of time. But also there's been some injury issues, and he just he hasn't necessarily had to be in that spot because you've had Corbin Burns and Brandon Woodruff there for almost as long as Peralta's been there. I mean, Peralta's been starting at the major league level longer than either of those guys were. Remember, he came in 2018.
Right.
So, but I think there's validity to that because he's the guy that I think if he reached the top end of what he can do this year, you're right. Then he is, I think he can be that legitimate top of the rotation guy and, lead the way for a bullpen, for a rotation that's otherwise, still uncertain in spots.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I mean, I think we're all hoping maybe like, what was he, a couple years ago when he was an All-Star? Was it that when he was, and he got in the All-Star game too because what was it, Woodruff couldn't pitch, but he deserved to be in the All-Star game at that point too. So, but I mean, you're starting to see some roster movement, nothing too big, I don't think, in terms of surprises, right? I mean, Mizorowski was already sent out. Was that
Yeah,
maybe the one kind of, if there
the
was one,
first
but
the first group of younger guys that got sent to minor league camp, I think that was all entirely expected. They were there just for a couple weeks to kind of, get some at bats and essentially be ready for minor league camp.
mm-hmm. Yeah. So, with 3 weeks left to go now, though, Brandon, what are you kind of keeping your eyes on, keeping your what's something that you're going to be watching for in these next, I guess, 3 weeks worth of games? And it's not completely accurate, but you kind of know where I'm getting at.
I think it's still kind of who ends up where in the rotation because once you get past Peralta, there's still some question. We don't know about Wade Miley. I mean, it sounds like Pat Murphy's more optimistic than maybe you first let on about him, being in the rotation the first week. We'll see about Aaron Ashby. I think if some other guys are a little bit more steady, that might allow him to maybe start the year in the minors
Mm-hmm.
and just kind of make sure he's all the way back because he's come back from is pretty significant. So you don't have to necessarily rush that. Um, I think we expect Colin Ray to be in there somewhere, but guys like Robert Gasser and Joe Ross and Jacob Eunice, like we'll see. But
Mm-hmm.
like, how the rotation starts is definitely not going to be how it finishes.
Right.
But I'm kind of curious to see how that slots in at the start of the year because I think there's just ways that kind of rolls over into other things.
Mm-hmm. So, you got your baseball perspectives book I saw the other
I
day
did.
too. But what do you look for when you get that in the mail? Like what
I just read.
you just read it?
Yeah.
Like I mean, because I think I asked you about the fan graphs and all that
Yeah,
stuff
it's just,
before.
I mean, for those that know, basically it's just a gigantic book which goes through like every team and talks about like a lot of players and, they do their own projections and stuff like that. But it's just, it's always just really interesting to me. And especially now that I've been doing it for a while. I mean, I think the first one I got was 2011. So it's very interesting. Sometimes you just go back and look through that book and see, certain things.
Right.
But it's just, I mean, it's just, that organization's kind of opinions and thoughts on things. And, it's interesting. It's a very good way when I'm like reading something for 5 minutes to just kind of look and I'll look at this team or something like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. All right, Brandon. We got the Badgers all switching gears here for a little bit before we get to our top five coming up here. But we got the Badgers who are in action tonight, the final game at the Kohl Center. I feel like this is a huge game for the Badgers in terms of mostly just for seedings when it comes to the Big Ten Conference Tournament. They're fifth right now, but they're a half game back from Nebraska. And was it? I just blanked on the other one. They're a half game back from potentially being in that third spot, but also Iowa's right behind them here too. You got Purdue coming up here. How big do you think this game is, or am I blowing it out of proportion?
I think it's very big because this team is struggling. There's no doubt about it. This team is struggling right now. And knowing what's on deck Sunday at Purdue, which is not easy.
Yeah.
Um, I feel like that for the reasons you mentioned, just to kind of maximize your seed. They're going to get the first bye, but it's still possible for them to get the double bye, which goes to top 4 teams, which the way that this Badgers team is playing this year would be nice. But Rutgers is a team that whooped up on them earlier this year, so to be able to try to snatch it back a little bit, especially with the postseason on the horizon, like that's at this point, like any win is a good win.
Yeah.
And they've got 2 chances to get a win before the postseason. Really, the postseason starts with the Big Ten Conference Tournament next week.
Yeah. Boy, and they're 9.5-point favorites tonight. Wisconsin is, which
Oof.
that we'll make our picks at the end, but that really makes me nervous.
Yes,
I don't like. I get it. Nebraska or excuse me, Rutgers is a little bit different on the road as compared to when they were at home. But I mean, that's still. Ooh, I don't know if I can do 9.5. But that's the thing. I want to see the Badgers go out there and just freaking dominate tonight.
It's been a while since we've seen that.
And I want them to go out there and start to get a little bit of confidence flowing here. And the thing is too is like when it comes to this Purdue game on Sunday or this weekend, could there be a shot where maybe Purdue's like, hey, we got everything wrapped up? Maybe they don't go all out, but then again, that affects rankings potentially too. So, I mean, that's the weird thing, isn't it? Like if there was no rankings, I could see Purdue just saying, hey, we're going to rest guys. And then maybe that opens the door for Wisconsin. But you got to factor in the rankings and the AP polls and all that stuff
You
too.
do. I mean, every win. I mean, they're chasing a really high seed, and every win, especially if you can get a quad one or quad two, I guess wherever the Badgers would rank, win. I mean, that's going to be important. Plus, I think the rest thing for them isn't as big of a deal because with the double bye, I think their first game will be Friday.
Yeah.
So that's still 5 days off. I mean,
Right.
that's still a good chunk of time to give your guys. And this time of year, you're also kind of walking that line of rest versus rust.
Right.
So, but no, it's an opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
But in order for that to be worth as much as it could be, that starts tonight. Because
Mm-hmm.
if you go out there and you lay an egg against Rutgers, then what you do against Purdue Sunday really doesn't matter that much.
Right. Yep. I agree. All right, Brandon, shall we do it? Should we do our top 5 plus? Do you have any honorable mentions?
I do.
Ooh,
I have a few.
you have a few.
I have a few.
Okay, you got more than me then, bro. I don't know. So, all right. Top 5 worst free agent signings of all time by our favorite football team. In honor of the NFL free agency period, we'll reveal our list coming up next. Spring cleaning, an annual tradition we all dread. When I think of spring cleaning, I think of dusting, washing windows, mopping floors, dreading looking under Hudson's bed. This year, though, let's have a little fun with spring cleaning. Let's really leave our mark on it. Let's get some new floors this spring from Carpet City Flooring Center in Eau Claire. The way I look at it, let's go big, baby. Let's replace that carpet in your living room so you don't have to hide those spill stains with fake plants and numerous end tables. You know what I'm talking about. Or update that kitchen floor that is completely out of style. It's time, people. So just head on over to Carpet City Flooring Center in Eau Claire and check out all the different options of flooring that are out there. Then Carpet City Flooring Center will work with you to set up the install of your new floors, and boom, spring cleaning is in the books. You really want to make your home feel clean this spring? Spring on in to Carpet City Flooring Center and look at getting a new floor for your home to make your home look even more amazing. Also, about an hour from now, Jake Boakes, our DNR warden buddy, will be joining us to answer a couple questions for our Outdoor Tidbits Thursday segment. So if you got any questions, hit us up with a quick text at 715-830-1912. All right, it's time for our Top 5 Plus. If you're not familiar with Top 5 Plus, usually Brandon and I, we do this on the podcast every Friday, or I should say every Friday. We try to do it numerous times out there. Once in a while, we get a little too busy or such. But we're doing it live because, well, it's almost free agency time here for the NFL. And we wanted to do top 5 plus, the plus being because one of us usually has some honorable mentions on there. Top 5 plus worst free agent signings by our favorite football teams. So, without further ado, should we jump right into it, B?
Let's do it.
Let's do it. You've got some honorable mentions.
I do.
I'll tell you what, I don't. So I don't have any honorable mentions. So I'm gonna let you run with it, big boy. How many honorable mentions do you have first off?
4.
Jeez, okay. This was kind of like my bear one where I had like 5 honorable mentions over there. So probably could have had 6 or 7 total.
Yeah.
But all right. I don't know if this paints a good picture for your team if you've got 4
Not
honorable
exactly.
mentions.
Not
on there.
exactly.
All right, what do you got, man?
All right. Well, I guess to set this up for people that don't know, I mean, the teams that I'm drawing from here, I mean, everyone knows I'm a Brewers fan. I'm a Vikings fan. I am a Bucks fan. I'm also a Pittsburgh Penguins fan.
Oh, so you're doing all your teams?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I just did football for me.
Oh
so.
no, when you said all of them, I said all of them.
That's fine. That's fine.
But 4 honorable mentions earlier on. You mentioned your Bear list, but my honorable mention starts with a former Bear that came to Minnesota, Bernard Berrien.
I remember him. I had him on a fantasy team 1 year.
6-year, $42 million deal. In 2008, he lasted about half of that, and like he had some moments where he was kind of productive, but just ultimately never kind of worth that contract. Which football contracts are always a little bit different in that way. Like as we talked about a lot here, like you can hear a number and it's not necessarily that number, but still, just not probably ultimately what they were looking for production wise there. My next one is I'll just go with another Viking in there too around that same time. Mediu Williams.
Oh yeah.
Safety came over from the Bengals, had a really good start to his career at Cincinnati, but some injuries and some other things I think just kind of kept him from ultimately, being what he could have maybe been with Minnesota. Floated around a little bit after that, but that was kind of really it for him. The one Brewer on my honorable mention list, and this one isn't so much that it was like really like a debilitating free agency signing. It just kind of goes to show that they really didn't get anything out of it. David Risky.
Okay.
Reliever signed in 2009 to a 3-year, $13 million deal. Lasted less than 2 years. Had an ERA over 5 with the Brewers during that time. Just, that was at a time I think where teams were still willing to throw out multi-year, at that time, decent money contracts for, non-premium relievers, which teams really don't seem to want to do very much anymore. But and the other one, the only Penguin that's going to be on my list, Jack Johnson, defenseman signed in 2018. Was very much a questionable decision at the time, and it proved out. 5 years, $3.25 million per year, and lasted 2 years before he was ultimately traded. So those are my 4 that are honorable mentions.
All right. So I thought about doing multiple ones, but I kind of kept it from just football here,
Okay.
just because with the NFL starting and such. So, you want me to start with my number 5 since you
Sure.
just did the since you
plus.
just did your pluses over there. So, my number 5 go. This one might be more of a just because I remember it happening, and he played 1 year for Green Bay. And I get he was older when he came over, but still, there was a lot of hype surrounding it. Hardy Nickerson. When Hardy Nickerson came over to Green Bay in 2002, he was 37, but this was when Mike Sherman was general manager too, and there was another person who was also signed with this free agent class that's coming up here. But I remember, Hardy Nickerson. Maybe I should have lowered the expectation, but there was some hype coming in, and he played 16 games, but only 86 tackles in 2002. So, maybe it's more. I had higher expectations for him, and I was a little bit younger. I was in high school and such, but for me, Hardy Nickerson, number 5, maybe when you're looking at it, probably shouldn't have signed, and that was his final year too. Like he was done after that. But number 5, I'm gonna go Hardy Nickerson for me.
There's always that kind of sinking feeling when we were looking through these, and you see that your team signed someone to a big deal, and they were the last team a team played for.
Yeah.
It's kind of like, oh, we got bit last.
Yep. Exactly. That's a good way to put it. Yeah, I completely agree. Completely agree.
There's a few of them on my list too. So number 5, Jeffrey Hammonds, Milwaukee signed with the Milwaukee Brewers. Those of you that don't remember, Jeffrey Hammonds, now fielder, signed with the Brewers in the offseason of 2000, ahead of 2001. So it was kind of their big splash signing before Miller Park opened up.
Mm-hmm.
Was going to kind of be supposed to be one of those new faces to kind of lead them into that new generation, but signed a 4-year, $22.5 million deal. Then played only a few years with the Brewers. Hit 248, had 16 home runs in 187 games. Didn't make it through the contract. He was someone that really he got a good payday as a result of the year before. He had a really good year with the Rockies, but I mean, it was also in Colorado, where maybe at that time people weren't still fully aware of what the Coors Field bump can do to some people offensively. I mean, he hit 335 with the Rockies in 2000 and parlayed that into a good contract. But yeah, he didn't make it through that contract. Ultimately, he was released by the Brewers, I believe, in 2003, maybe. Floated around a little bit, but that was kind of it. And he was just, at that time, it was the Brewers trying to make a splash.
Mm-hmm.
But maybe not fully, doing their homework as far as, the sustainability of him, being able to be good for them. And it just didn't work. And it didn't work out.
Yeah. My number 4 also relates to what you were saying about my number 5, when they finished their career with that team. Jeff Saturday, at number 4. I still remember seeing it on the scroll the day that he signed with the Packers on ESPN. That 2-year, $7.75 million deal. Coming a long time, Peyton Manning Center, coming over. Ended up playing like 13 games, got benched for Evan Dietrich Smith, and still made the Pro Bowl because the Pro Bowl is ridiculous, based off fan votes and such. But, I mean, I get it. It was kind of a, fill in the hole, stopgate sort of thing. But the fact that he couldn't even finish off the year as a starter kind of tells you something. Yeah, that one, I still remember having the argument with, this was a few years ago, but when Neil Hebert was
I was
on.
just going to bring, I remember Neil being a Jeff Saturday guy.
Yeah, like, I don't know if we were, like, picking the all-time Packers teams or something like that, and he put Jeff Saturday on there, and he's like, well, you made a Pro Bowl. Like, you weren't paying attention to what was going on. He got benched after 13 games. So, yeah, Jeff Saturday for me is number 4 over there. Another guy who finished his career in Green Bay. So.
And this is a guy whose last stop was with the team I'm going to bring up. This is the only Milwaukee Buck I have on this list.
Okay.
Anthony Mason.
Ah, yes.
Anthony Mason in 2001 signed a 4-year, $21 million deal with the Bucks. Many people and at that time, he was kind of looked at as being like the last piece.
Mm-hmm.
Because remember, in 2001, the Bucks are coming off the Eastern Conference Finals run where they lost to the Sixers in 7 games. They have Glenn Robinson, they have Ray Allen, they have Sam Cassell, they have Tim Thomas. They feel really good. But they're just looking to add a little toughness, a little physicality. And Anthony Mason in the 90s, played for the Knicks most notably. Played for Charlotte. He was an all-star there later on. Like when he was kind of looked at with some of those,
with the Heat,
with the Heat, with
the
Hornets, or maybe it was with the Heat where he was an all-star. But he was like looked at as like a legitimate 20-point scorer kind of guy, and 20 points, 8, 9 rebounds. So you could understand the rationale of bringing him into Milwaukee, but it just didn't work.
Right.
Like, he 4-year deal, lasted only 2 years, and really, he averaged 8.5 points, seven rebounds per game. And that was kind of a real tipping point, because that 2001-2002 season, the Bucks missed the playoffs.
Yeah.
Like, they went from the year before being a game away from the NBA Finals, bringing back pretty much the same group, and it didn't mesh. Like,
Yep.
it didn't click. Like, I think bringing him in, you kind of had too many, cooks in the kitchen, so to speak.
Yep.
And ultimately, that kind of led to the unraveling of that group of Bucks, because the next year, Ray Allen, in the second year of the Anthony Mason deal, and look, it's not Anthony Mason's fault, but that Ray Allen was dealt, and that group kind of just was picked apart,
Mm-hmm.
and that led into a long period of just kind of irrelevancy with the Bucks.
Yep. Good pick. Good pick. I can still picture Anthony Mason to this day right now.
Those were his last 2 years in the NBA.
Mm-hmm. Number 3 for me. This might have been one of the first, or the start of let's make Aaron Rodgers happy. Jimmy Graham, number 3, 3-year, $30 million deal to bring him in over to Green Bay. And he lasted 2 years in Green Bay. Hey, he played every single game, though. I guess you got that going for us, which is nice. But his first year, 2018, 636 receiving yards, 2 touchdowns. 2019, 447 receiving yards and 3 touchdowns. Even in like Seattle in 2017, he only had 520 receiving yards, but he had 10 touchdowns. I think that's what, you bring him in for his size for a red zone threat over there. And he never, ever, ever developed into that for Green Bay. Apparently a good friend of Rodgers and all that. Even that couldn't help it out. So, I mean, there was a run there with Uncle Ted, with Ted Thompson, and I guess you throw in Goody into this too, but where they just struggled to find a tight end. It was always kind of flip flopping all over, and they swung and they missed on Jimmy Graham. So number 3 for me, Jimmy Graham.
Number 2, and I think this is probably going to be the funnest one on the list for me, but this is my only Viking in the top 5. Fred Smoot.
Ah, yeah.
Fred Smoot signed
This is your 3 though, right?
This is my 3 though.
Okay, I
yes.
thought you said 2.
No, this is my 3.
Yep.
Fred Smoot, 6-year, $34 million deal in 2005. Only lasted 2 of those years. Played 25 games, 3 interceptions. Got off to a good start to his career in Washington, and when he came in, Vikings already had Antoine Winfield, so I think the thought was, hey, we got 2 very different, but still like 2 very productive corners, and
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if he was necessarily a good fit for what they were doing, but still, it never clicked. And then gotta mention, of course, Fred Smoot, a central figure in the infamous Love Boat scandal for the Vikings. I mean, that was 2005, I believe, as well. So just it never worked after he was always one of those guys who was very sure of himself, even when he didn't necessarily have reasons to be.
Yeah.
So he lasted 2 years in Minnesota, kind of floated around a little bit. I think he went back to Washington for a while too, but like floated around for a few more years, but that was kind of it. But just never lived up to kind of the expectations he was going to have when he came in.
Mm-hmm. That's a good one. Good old Fred Smoot, man. All right, the top 2. My number 2, going back to the Mike Sherman era of general manager and coach, Joe Johnson, defensive end, Joe Johnson. The Packers gave him a 6-year, $33 million deal back in 2002. That was a good chunk of change over there for salary cap and such. He was coming off of 2 years. So 1999, he missed the entire season. But then in 2000, he bounced back and became an all-pro, comeback player of the year. 12 sacks for the Saints, played in 16 games. And he played 16 games again, 9 sacks. Gets that big free agent deal from Green Bay and 2 total sacks. Played in only 11 games in 2 years. Another guy who ended his career in Green Bay over there. I remember being geeked up about, hey, Joe Johnson's coming in. We finally got another defensive end. Reggie White's gone and all that. And thought Vonnie Holiday was going to be that guy and such. But yeah, the Hardy Nickerson and Joe Johnson free agent class is something I still remember to this day. And it is not a very very positive memory of the Mike Sherman general manager era for Green Bay. And the thing is, with Joe Johnson, he played in double-digit games besides 99 when he missed the entire season with that knee injury. Then he gets to Green Bay. He's only age 30, 5 games his first year, and 2 sacks. Then he plays 6 games in 2003. 6 games, no sacks, nothing. So Joe Johnson, number 2.
My number 2 and my number 1 are kind of connected, and you'll kind of like probably get it when I say who they are, but they're from the same team and they're similar. It was just a matter of having to pick one over the other. My number 2, Matt Garza.
Yeah. Okay.
Matt Garza signed a 4-year.
I think I know where your number 1's going to be now.
I mean,
Yeah.
I'm not. Yeah, it's should be pretty obvious at that point. But Matt Garza, $4-year, $50 million deal in 2014. His numbers, he didn't go all 4 years, I believe, with the Brewers. So, but 26 and 39, an ERA of 4.65 in 528 in the third innings pitched, and just. I think I've said this before, but I don't know if I've ever seen like a more universally just disliked Brewer.
Man.
Like, I don't know if I ever met anybody that liked Matt Garza.
Looked like Count Dracula.
He did, and look, he got off to a decent start to his career, or with the Brewers. I mean, he pitched well before Milwaukee.
He just always looked mad.
Right,
Yeah.
and by the end, like, it was just that awkward spot where it's like, he's still on the roster because of his contract, and it's just like probably frustrating for him because he wants more of an opportunity to try to kind of turn it around, and he wasn't necessarily getting it, but at the same time, he wasn't getting it because it wasn't pitching well. Just it didn't work. I mean, it didn't work at the end, and at that time, remember that's when the Brewers were really desperate for basically any starter with the pulse. Around that time, I believe it was maybe the year or prior to this, I Kyle Loesch. And Kyle Loesch actually gave him a couple decent years. So that's why he's not on my list. Like, his last year was kind of tough, but like his first couple years were pretty solid. So, but it just ultimately didn't work.
I think I do know your number 1. I think it's pretty popular out there. So, with that, my number 1 is I remember stupid crap. I don't know why. I just remember stupid crap. I remember this day. It was a day that I actually went to, and my wife, I think, was pregnant at the time. Was she pregnant? I had to double check the year. I'd have to double check the year. Let me double check the year. Yeah, but we took my grandma out to dinner when Green Mill was still here.
Hey.
And that was also the first week of free agency. I think it was the Friday of free agency, so a couple days afterwards. News had broke that Jared Cook was signing with a different team, tight end. Everybody's freaking out and pissed because Ted Thompson didn't bring back Jared Cook. And he had, the catch in the playoff game against Dallas and such. It's like, great, another tight end. Not going to have a tight end. And then minutes after, Martellus Bennett signed a 3-year, $21 million deal with the Packers. And then everybody then got excited after that. It's like, all right, Bennett, big tight end, right? Was kind of comboing it up with the Gronk in New England, coming off of a year where he had over 700 yards, 7 touchdowns. We were familiar with him when he was with Chicago, a big target over there. He comes in, and it was bad. Only 3 years, $21 million deal, lasted 7 games, gets hurt with the shoulder, but then that turned into some ugly thing where he started to blame Pat McKenzie, the Packers doctor, one breath it was like they were forcing him to play when he was hurt, and then, cutting him and trying to get money back and saying, no, he could, it was ugly. Then he, in podcasts or whatever, criticized Green Bay players. I remember Jordy Nelson and Aaron Rodgers having to go on Instagram to defend Pat McKenzie after this whole thing. It was bad. And then he gets picked up by New England for just a couple games, but then we don't see him anymore. So again, it's another guy whose career kind of ended with Green Bay. But I mean, I remember him. We were pumped. He shows up to Green Bay. He ends up, right before training camp opens, he's sleeping in the locker room because he showed up late. And he's recording a video thinking there's ghosts or something like that. But the Martellus Bennett one, not only just from the play, but the after effects of him being there, it was just bad. Martellus Bennett, number 1.
When you said Jimmy Graham, I'm like, I wonder if Martellus Bennett's on his list.
Yeah.
I wasn't sure if he'd be number 1, but you make a very good case for that.
Yeah, I think the reason he's number one is the downfall after of everything
The
that expired.
extracurriculars.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, exactly.
Gotcha. Well, you allude to it. My number one, it's not exactly too surprising. Jeff Suppan.
Yeah, Jeff Suppan.
Jeff Suppan inked a 4-year, $42 million deal in the offseason ahead of the 2007 season. Ultimately, he goes 29-36 with the Brewers with a 5.08 ERA in 577 innings pitched. Didn't make it through the contract. Was actually released part of the way through his final season. And I remember, to me, it wasn't like the difference. What puts Suppan over Garza is, I think by the time Garza signed, people knew what what Matt Garza was.
Yeah.
Like he was like a good like 2 or 3 starter. Then that's fine. Like they remember the Brewers had, eventually they will have traded Giovanni Gallardo, but like they were just looking for starters. And even Giovanni Gallardo, like he was the ace of the Brewer staff, but he wasn't someone I think you would necessarily say was like an ace if you compared it around baseball.
Right.
But the Brewers were just desperate for starters. Jeff Suppan, I remember like, and maybe it was because it was like the first big kind of starting pitching sign the Brewers made. There was like, oh, he's an experienced veteran ace. It's like he's gonna pair with Ben Sheets. Like, no. Like, and just the number, he the good year into free agency, but this one just reeked a little bit of desperation. Of remember at this time, Brewers weren't really outside of Ben Sheets weren't really developing starters, so it's like we need something because they're in that window of Ron Fielder, Hart, Hardy. You mentioned Sheets, like they're all there. It's like, hey, we're here. We need more. And kudos, I guess, kudos to them for spending the money on it. But it just
was that the start of the whole. If Boris needs somebody signed,
I don't know if Scott Boras.
He talks to Mark Anasio.
I don't know because I don't know if Scott Boras was Jeff Suppan's agent or not.
Okay.
I know that became a little bit more prevalent with the Loesch Garza time.
Okay.
Even if he wasn't, like he wasn't necessarily the agent for both. I believe he was for Loesch, but yeah, like Suppan's last year.
But Mark was active in signing Suppan.
Yeah, he was a part of it. Yeah, but like I think now Suppan's one of those guys that wouldn't get that deal. I mean, he got that deal coming off his age 31 season. Even his numbers coming off of 2006 with the Cardinals like weren't great.
Didn't he have playoff success? Was it NLCS or something?
Yes. And his friend, like Suppan's first year with the Brewers was okay. He was reliable. He pitched 200 innings, but an ERA of a 4.62, like, and then after that, like his last 5 or 4 years in the majors, he never had a year that was like a positive WAR. Like, just I mean, there's a reason it's kind of universally panned by people when it comes to like the Brewers, and that's I mean, it's just that to me that's worse than the Garza one.
Right. That's a good one. Yeah, I think if we factor this into like Wisconsin as a whole for sports, I think the majority would have Jeff Suppan's like the easy answer for a lot of people, just because it was so like, yep. I mean, I could go back to some Facebook memories I've seen where I've got like a Facebook post about Jeff Suppan.
Oh, I'm sure I do.
For crying out loud, it's like
this bomb, like
yeah.
And think I too, like it's not. I think I also remember when Jeff Suppan is like 2008 when the Brewers made the playoffs. Remember that Ben Sheets got hurt that Cubs series right before the postseason, and so he would have started one of those playoff games. Who knows? But the Brewers lose the first 2 games in Philly. They come back to Milwaukee. They win Game 3. Dave Bush pitches a good game, wins Game 3. So Game 4, they're fighting for their life, and because of that injury, who are they throwing out there? It's Jeff Suppan, who you've paid all that money to. And what happens? He gets rocked by the Phillies. And then that eliminates him.
Right.
Like, it's the answer.
Yeah. No, I agree. All right. There you go. There's our top 5 plus coming at you. We're going to take a quick break. We'll finish up the second hour. If this computer wants to let me finish up the second hour. Maybe not. Okay, there we go. Are you still sick?
Slightly.
Did your mom not make you chicken noodle soup?
I asked her not to, because she doesn't need to be making me a big jug of soup and I'm going to have like a bowl. It's just going to go.
Whoa. Are you looking to get your name out in the public eye more? Do you need some apparel, maybe some drinkware, signage done? Whatever marketing materials you may be looking for, Resonance Branding Company has a wide range of items to help make your brand stand out from the competition. All your branding needs in one convenient place. Resonance is here to serve you time, money, and headaches. They can also set you up with an online store to sell your items too. So let me simply ask you, does your brand resonate? Resonance Branding Company, the official swag provider for the program and the Man Cave podcast. If you want to check out some of the line out there, just text the word swag, SWAG, to 715-830-1912, and you will get that link over there. Couple, I'll pause you up here quick. Got a couple minutes left here, but a couple people on the texting line mentioning Steve McMichael. To me, I mean, he signed a year and was only, I looked it up, $450,000, Brandon. So to me, I don't view him as one of the worst free agent signings by Green Bay. I look at it in terms of expectations heading into it and big money value contracts.
Right.
You know, like Joe Johnson, 6 years, $30-some million,
Right.
lasting 2 years. Martellus Bennett can't even last a full
The
season.
to me, the money is a big part of this. It's money versus production because I mean, there's think of how many people have, like, signed as some sort of free agent and then, like, literally didn't make the team.
Right. Yeah. Jim McMahon, I mean, we knew he wasn't going to be a starter. He was a backup, and so I mean, I don't view that as a worse free agent signing. He was coming in as a backup. So, no, I mean, I'm looking at it from what were the expectations coming in and that sort of stuff. And Stephen Michael was at the end of his career too.
Right.
So,
Yep.
but if you got any other ones out, a lot of people go though picking the Martellus Bennett and Jimmy Graham, and a couple also picking Joe Johnson over there too. I was looking at some of the lists earlier, just to see if I was missing. Adrian Clem was on there, lineman that replaced Mike Wall, but he kind of lasted a year. I'm like, okay, kind of was a stopgate sort of thing over there too. So, but I don't know. Those guys, I think at least in my opinion, the five I put out there, we had high expectations for those guys. Maybe not so much for like a Jeff Saturday, but I think we expected a little bit better of a performance from a Pro Bowler to play
And he
13
made the
games.
Pro Bowl.
Coming up next hour here, we're going to do some local sports roundup. Brandon's going to be leaving here later on to head over. I keep wanting to say down over to Green Bay for girls state basketball. So we'll preview that coming up here for our local sports roundup, brought to you by Amundsen's Appliance Center. I will do a cream of the crop with you. We missed it last week, so we will do a cream of the crop with you too. Also, last call, if you do have any questions for Jake Boakes, our conservation warden for our outdoor tidbits, that's coming up at 8:30. You got to text it now, 715-830-1912. The Badgers in action tonight too. We'll make some picks for that game. 9.5. And Brandon and I we're gonna take the points, or how we? That still makes me nervous. That's gonna be 9.5 over there, man. So, but we'll throw some more hoops chats coming up here too. Bucks freaking out now because their 6-game winning streak done with. Golden State beat them. Let's all get back to freaking out. No, I'm just kidding there. Hey, in a couple minutes too, if you are a member of the Fan Cave, you're gonna get an email. You're gonna get the early bird. Early bird gets the worm. Is that how that phrase goes? Of the dates for the golf outing, and you're going to be able to register right away for your team before they fill up, because every year we've done this, it's sold out, Brandon. And everybody does it because they want to see Brandon in that Dikembe Mutombo jersey again.
I don't know if the sunburn I got that day is worth it.
It was worth it for the rest of us.
Me and my bright white shoulders.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So if you're not a member, you'll have to wait till tomorrow when we officially announce it. So, but check your emails in the next couple of minutes here. It should be coming. Might want to check your spam or something too, in case it goes there for whatever reason. All right, 2 hours in. We got one more to go. Stick around. We'll be back in just a couple of minutes here to do some local sports roundup with Mr. Brandenburg. Third hour kicking off right now on this Thursday morning here. Appreciate you tuning in wherever, however you're tuning in. The email is being sent. I don't know why it's taking forever, but it says, we're sending your email now. So I am not answering any questions because that ruins the tease. So I've gotten a few of you asking when the dates are. Well, if you're a member of the fan cave, you're going to get an email. Otherwise, you got to wait till tomorrow. That's the point of the tease there. So check your emails hopefully here in a little bit. I'm literally watching a wheel going right now that says we're sending. I don't know why it's taking, but it'll get there. So all right, Brandon. Thursday edition of Local Sports Roundup brought to you by Amundsen's Appliance Center. Let's start with girls basketball because that's where you're going to be heading over to Chippewa McDonald back at state, right?
Yes. Yep.
Even moving up a division.
They're up in Division 4 this year, so they are playing the last game of today, the first day of the tournament this evening at around 8:15 approximately. There is no approximate start time just because it depends on how it's 15 minutes after the first game ends. So, and they will be facing off against Cuba City. That is the 2-3 matchup. McDonald the 2, Cuba City the 3. The game before them is the 1-4 matchup between Laconia and the Prairie School. So, McDonald got back to state with a 58-38 win over Fall Creek on Saturday at Eau Claire North. The game that was a 2-point game at halftime before McDonald was able to pull away in the second half. So, it's a McDonald team that they're led by a 7-person senior class, as well as they have a good freshman class. So it's kind of a unique thing. And there's some juniors in there that play a role as well. But they're a team that really, it seems like since they lost to Fall Creek near the start of February, has really kind of upped their game. They picked up some really good wins. They beat Neilsville in the crossover. They beat Phillips and Fall Creek in the sectional round, and now they're facing a really good Cuba City team. I mean, you could make a really good case going down the state in any of these 4 teams that are in the Division 4 field. It might be the most, kind of, let's say loaded, but just the most, there's the most possibilities, I think, out there.
I was going to ask you that question too, was, because I remember, and maybe, but Cuba City was like always, it seemed like they were at state all the time. Like
Cuba City leads the state. I think this is their 17th appearance at state, which is the most in the state.
Yeah.
So, I believe it was 2005. Cuba City beat Thorpe in the state semifinals.
Okay.
So, Cuba City is it's just boys and girls basketball. But speaking here for girls, it's just a great program. Like over the years, many, many trips to state, many state championships. Like, that's just a program that I think when you think of state, sometimes that's a team you kind of think of a lot because more often than not, even if you're just kind of more of a outside observer, like that's just a team you hear about.
Right. Yeah, no doubt. So tonight, so they're the 2 seed, right?
McDonald's a 2 seed, Cuba City's a 3 seed.
3 seed. Okay.
The winners will play Saturday afternoon.
All right. And I know Baldwin Woodville is also in action today.
Yes.
For girls, and they're the 1 seed.
They're not the 4 seed.
Or 4 seed. They're going up against the 1 seed.
They're going up against the 1 seed Madison Edgewood. So that is actually the first game of the day.
Okay. So
1:30.
Madison Edgewood again seems like another team that's
they're
at state too. So.
They're very good. That's a good girls basketball program as well. So yeah.
So we'll see if kind of impressive in your opinion to move up a division and get back to state this year?
I think so. Or... it's a different path. This was the expectation because a good chunk of that team was back. So they didn't kind of shy away from it. And yeah, they're there. They've got a shot, but it's all 4 of these teams I think have a legit shot. I think that's kind of one of the things that makes the Division 4 field so good is any of those 4 teams could come away winning the title, and I don't think I would be that surprised. Now, certainly, I think Laconia is probably the favorite. They're the defending Division 4 champ. They've got some high level talent, and usually, a lot of these cases, you kind of look at the champion until somebody knocks the champion off. So we'll see if that happens. But it's I think Division 1 and Division 4 are the 2 divisions that are kind of the most balanced as far as talent, where you might be able to see a couple different scenarios play out.
Yeah. Boys are also in action tonight.
They got their sectional semis.
Semis here. And I know a little bit, outside your coverage here, Brandon, but still you're familiar with some of these teams here too. Owen with you, 4 seed.
Yep.
still alive right now. So they're going up against
Winter.
Winter tonight.
In Medford.
In Medford, that's right. We got Eau Claire Emmanuel Lutheran that's taking on the one-seeded Solon Springs. Durand, Arkansas taking on Aquinas, and Cameron taking on Unity too.
Yes, and those are actually Division 5 and 4 matchups.
Mm-hmm.
And
Elk Mountain in Division 3.
I would say you've got Elk Mountain, yeah. But I'm sorry. But in Division 5, you mentioned that Owenwithy winning their first regional title, I believe, since 2000. So it's been a little bit for them. But let's put it this way: if I was not working, I would be kind of tempted to go to that game, because I think that's going to be a very interesting styles clash there. Because you have Owenwithy, who's been more of a methodical team, but I mean, and Winter, who is very up tempo. I mean, covering the East Lakeland, obviously, I've got to know that team a little bit, but they're very up tempo. They lead Division 5 in scoring. They're a team that wants to get out and go. So I think styles make fights, and in this case, styles makes games.
That quote. Yeah.
So that winner will get either Solon Springs, who's the 1 seed, in that game against Emmanuel, who picked up the big win over Siren in the regional finals. That game is in Chautauqua.
Okay.
So Division 4, I mean, the Dunn St. Croix still has 2 teams left. For one of those 2 is Durand, Arkansas, who picked up the big win over Fall Creek, pulling away there in that regional final. We'll take on Aquinas, who beat Onalaska Luther. Other half of that section you mentioned, Cameron and Unity. That's those are 2 state-ranked teams. 2 teams with only a couple losses on their ledger. So that'd be another one that I think would be really interesting to see. And those 2 winners will meet Saturday at Eau Claire North.
Okay, so got a shot at.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead. And then the other other Dunn St. Croix team is Elk Mound. You mentioned a little bit that they picked up the win over Berlin to win the regional title, and they will be facing GET, Gale Electric Trempealeau, tonight in Arcadia. And that winner will face either Prescott or Somerset, whoever emerges from the Middle Border Invitational up on the top half of that bracket. They will play on Saturday at Memorial. So both North and Memorial are going to be hosting sectionals. A sectional final Saturday. So if you want a chance to go out and watch a couple, good basketball games locally, you're going to be getting them there.
Yeah, absolutely. Good shot, I would say, for at least a couple local
teams.
Some
of those teams we mentioned,
be going down to Madison next week already. Just to kind of recap it too, I know we had team wrestling last weekend too. Menominee, they advanced to the quarterfinals but fell in the semifinals. Was it Kakana,
who ended up winning the state title.
That was in Division 1, Division 2. We saw St. Croix Falls falling in the championship to Luxembourg. And then Division 3, Cumberland falling in the semis to number 1 seed Fenimore over there too. So, but again, good representation from wrestling individual and state these last couple of weeks.
Right. Yeah, a lot of good wrestling this year. And I know we talked about it a little bit last week too, boys hockey being down there, Chippewa Falls falling in the semis to Brookfield.
Yes, that game, I was following along with you on Twitter, man. You feel for those kids, because it was that third period where it looked like, I mean, Chippewa was in command for the majority part of that game, right?
Too many mistakes. Too much time in the box, but also, you got to give Brookfield credit, because that power play of theirs was lethal. I mean, they had 6 opportunities with the man advantage, and they scored on 3 of them. Plus scoring on the 6-on-5 empty netter. But, they sent it to overtime before they ultimately won in overtime. But, a tough end, but still, it was a fantastic year for Chippewa. I mean, this was a Chippewa team that was kind of, I think of as just being a complete team, in all phases, the offense, the defense, the goaltending, the coaching, like everything was just clicking for them and working together. And that's what it takes. I mean, anytime over the years we see any of these teams that make a run like that, that's what it takes. And, obviously, a sour taste in the mouth coming out of Madison, but still, I mean, a lot, it's just one of those things. I think that in time, if you're on that team, I think you'll definitely kind of see the bigger picture on. So it's just, it's just tough in the interim when the game goes that way.
Do they have a lot of those guys returning? Or
they have 5 seniors from that team that are graduating, and they are all players that play a solid role, with goaltender Mick Marlowe, forwards Jackson Hoy, Mason Johnson, and Carter Bovey, and then defenseman Caden Swoboda. But there is a fair amount of younger guys there too, so they should still be a very good team. But you're going to have other teams in the area that like Memorial that are bringing guys back too. Hudson's always good, so. But they will still be a team we're talking about.
Yeah. So, and I bet you that Big Rivers Conference is still going to be a battle next year
Right.
too.
New
So,
Richmond made the D2 title game before they fell to Fond du Lac St. Mary Springs. So, yeah, the Big Rivers really since, I mean, it's been the case for a while, but since they've gone to two divisions, you've kind of seen the duality with it, where you've seen, Hudson win a few state titles, you've seen Chippewa down at state a few times, and then Division Two, you've seen several different teams. Rice Lake won a state title a few years ago. New Richmond won the title last year. Menominee made state last year, and then this year, River Falls and New Richmond both make it to state. So you're kind of seeing that kind of duality a little bit of, the Big Rivers representing in both D1 and D2, which speaks a lot to the talent of that conference in hockey, both boys and girls. I mean, you got to give St. Croix Valley credit for making it down there too this year on the girls' side.
yeah, absolutely. So, when does some of the spring sports practice start? Do you know?
Track actually started this week.
Did they really?
Yeah, and they're out.
Oh,
Some teams are outside.
I can believe it. Yeah.
So you'll have some indoor meets kind of starting to trickle out here these next few weeks. But then next week, you've got, I think it's softball starts next week.
Okay.
Then baseball and golf. I mean, I've kind
Golf
of
courses
talked.
are open now. Man, I wish I was back in
Yeah,
high
well,
school.
that's it. Talking with some golf coaches, like they're, like they're. It's been a few years since they had the possibility, again, knock on wood,
Yep.
of
exactly.
actually like getting out and being on the courses. I mean, I can't tell you how many golf coaches I talked to in the last 4 or 5 years where they were practicing inside until
Oh, yeah.
the latter half of April.
hmm
So hopefully that's
Yep.
different for them this year, because it would be nice to kind of get a spring season where it's early April and teams are able to be out competing in their sports.
Yeah, dude. I wish I could go back to high school and maybe participate. Although golfers are better now, so
Oh yeah.
yeah, way better. But yeah, I mean, because usually, not to jinx it again, knock on wood, it's like this week or next week we always talk about a state tournament snowstorm or something like that. But hopefully that's not the case.
Well,
this year.
last year I drove in the snowstorm over to state girls basketball.
Did you really?
Yeah, because it was. I remember I left really early. Yeah, I'm just like, I remember being on 29, like especially between like Wausau and Green Bay, like one lane.
Yeah.
Like the one lane that's it. Plow drivers doing the best they can, but it's just
Yep.
snowing so much. Like, and I remember it didn't really clear up until I got about 10 miles out of Green Bay.
Really
Yeah,
fun times, huh?
but a difference here can make.
Man. So all right, and that kind of wraps up this basketball season with
Pretty much.
with the winter sports season.
Pretty
So,
much.
Chippewa Steel still.
Chippewa Steel, they actually have a game tonight
Okay.
at home at Chippewa and at the Ice Arena against the Wisconsin Wendigo. Right now Chippewa's, they're trying to scratch and claw to get in the playoffs. They're 5 points back of Minnesota for that last playoff spot, but there's still, several games left. So, but they're gonna, they're looking to stack some wins here. They've got, the season's about a month. You got about a month to go. So, there's still going to be some home games, but if you want to get out and check a game out, you got a couple more chances. But they're dwindling.
Absolutely. All right, good stuff there, Brandon. Local sports roundup again brought to you by Amundsen's Appliance Center. The email, I got the email now too, Brandon. So people should have it now if you want to get an early bird sign up over there. Plus the new thing we've added for this year's golf outing. I'm debating, Brandon, when it comes to the title belts.
Mhm.
Do we go bigger?
Maybe.
Or do we keep the tradition of the mini title belts?
Just as a heads up, and you mentioned this before, but really do make sure to check your spam folder, because mine was actually in the spam folder.
All right.
So make sure you
How
do.
dare you
I
have
know.
an email from me in your spam folder, sir? How dare you? That really hurts my feelings. Or junk email too. Spam or junk, right? One of the two. So, but yes, check your spam if you want the early one. Otherwise, if you're not a member, well, then you got to wait an extra day to find out the info and such. So, I don't know. I'm thinking about it. Do we upgrade to the bigger one? Do we do it or not?
Good question.
Or do we just kind of keep it with the tradition? It's like the mini title belts over there. I don't know. I'll have to think about it. That's not the change that I'm alluding to, or I should say the new thing we're adding. That's not what I'm alluding to. There's something different coming up here too. So we'll see. Maybe if we upgrade it. Nah, I don't know. We'll see. I got to play with it. What are you doing?
Raising
People
the roof.
can see you on camera doing that.
That's fine.
That was a lame raising the roof too, man.
I'm a lame person.
Oh, sometimes you are. I'll call you out on it. Sometimes you are, just throwing it out there. So, okay, we're gonna have Jake coming up here in 10 minutes. Again, last call for any outdoor questions that you may have. I know the turkey tags leftovers going on sale next week. You want to talk about late snowstorms? That's what screwed up my season last year. That's why that big dumping. It's like, all right, I'm gonna go a little bit earlier. Nope, not doing that anymore.
That was a really loud nope.
Yeah, I was upset. I still have the camera footage, I think, from my trail camera. It was like nothing. And 24 hours later, it was like 2 feet or whatever, a foot and a half or something like that. So I ain't doing that. So, um, so you might want to get your alarms set on your phone and that stuff over there too. So, okay, Brandon, we were talking a little hoops a little bit earlier on here. We got the Badgers back in action tonight. We got that going up against Rutgers. 2 games left of the regular season here, Brandon. Marquette lost last night to UConn. I get Marquette is going to be hard for me to pick in a tournament. And I don't know if I'm reading too much into this, but when I look at the teams that they've beat and they've lost to recently, it seems like they've been losing to, they just lost to Creighton. They lost to UConn again. They're beating up on mid to lower teams in the Big East. Marquette's going to be a hard team for me to pick the further they get into the tournament because I feel like, are they a team that can dominate lower competition, but can they beat these better teams that you're going to probably face throughout the tournament?
Yeah, that's gonna be a good question. And this year we've kind of seen the expectations change a little bit with Marquette. Last year was kind of that arrival year with, for Shaka Smart and that Marquette as far as kind of reemerging on the national landscape.
Hmm.
And then they got upended in the tournament. But this year they've been back up there. But you're right, like that's kind of always the duality about the tourney. I mean, there's so many things you can look at when that time comes, and we're what 2 weeks away from that.
Hmm. Yeah.
There's the duality of that when it comes to just like what do you go with, but this Marquette team is a team still that does have high end players, Tyler Kolek, etc. But it's I don't know, like I'm very interested because I'm not sure. Like this is one of those years where I don't know think there is a favorite.
Yeah, but then there was a part of me too. We were doing this yesterday. I was looking at Joe Lenardi's bracket, and there was a part of me too. It's like, I'm expecting, we were saying like with all these different favorites or non-favorites, you could see some new teams in the Final Four. But then I'm like, you know what? I can also see it just being chalk. And we did that. And I
The
had 3 1 seeds in the Final Four using Joe Lenardi's bracket.
Yeah,
I just, I don't have, I don't know if it's just because when you think about the top teams that have always kind of been consistently in the top 5, it's usually the same ones, besides Kansas now. But Purdue's always been up there. Houston's always been up there. UConn's always been up there. Arizona's kind of been down and back and all that sort of stuff. Iowa State's the one team I think everybody's like, who? They're like, they're that high right now, number.
yeah, 6.
And they got a win last night again, too. So I Wisconsin and Marquette for me in this tournament are going to be very hard to pick. Wisconsin mostly because are they going to be a 6? Can they get by the first game, depending on who they play? If they win a couple games here and they make a deep run, could they jump up to a 5-4 or somewhere? I don't think they can get to a 4 at this point. But those 2 Wisconsin teams are going to be really hard for me to pick, I think, when it comes to bracket time. And I don't know. If I had to pick a champion right now, I still might go UConn, to be honest with you. They seem to be the most consistent-ish. And Purdue's actually playing really good heading
Yeah.
into this tournament too. So I don't know. It's tough for me to pick. That's tough, but that's why we love the tournament, right?
Yes, yes, yes.
You can pre-register right now for our tournament bracket challenge
Ooh.
by heading to sportstalk1051.com, clicking on that fan cave tab over there. All right, let's take a quick break. We're going to have our outdoor tidbits with Mr. Jake Bolks, conservation warden for the great state of Wisconsin, coming up in just a few minutes.
pain pills, no risky surgery. This is an all-natural solution. QC Kinetics has tens of thousands of satisfied patients who have reclaimed their mobility. Take action now and live your best life this spring and summer. It's a great use of your tax refund check, by the way. Call QC Kinetics for a free consultation. 715-443-4440. That's 715-443-4440. 715-443-4440.
Baseball season is here, so let's go to a game together. Get on the bus with us as we head to opening day in Milwaukee as Milwaukee takes on Minnesota Tuesday, April 2nd. It's an early border battle between these two rival teams that you won't want to miss out on. Your ticket includes round-trip motor coach transportation, a tailgate party from Premier Catering, and a game ticket on the Johnsonville party deck that includes food and beverages. Just visit wiscotrips.com to reserve your ticket before they're gone. Let's play ball.
He serves up a whole lot of sports with a whole lot of opinion, which means you've got a whole lot of listening to do. The Dan Kasper Show, weekday mornings from 6 to 9.
Answering your questions and giving you the tips you need to be successful and safe in the outdoors. It's time for your Outdoor Tidbits. Have a question you'd like answered by Jake? Send it to us, and we'll ask for you.
It is time for our Outdoor Tidbits with Mr. Jake Boakes, Conservation Warden for the great state of Wisconsin. Jake, how you doing, bud?
I'm doing good. How about yourself?
Oh, can't complain too much, man. I'm getting ready for turkey hunting next. Well, I should say the tag's coming for, or opening up next week and such.
Yeah.
So.
Or you could try going out next week and risk it.
Yeah, right. I just gave away what I was going to do, so now I just told the our warden that. So, but no, quick reminder for everybody: if you want to look over any leftover tags, that's available at the DNR website to see if your area has any or not. I know last year I tried to take advantage of early season. That's when I got dumped with like 2 feet of snow or whatever it was. So, I know some people have been kind of wondering too. I don't know if you would kind of have an answer on this, Jake, but with the warmer weather, do you think it'll affect turkey movement that we've had warmer weather to begin this year, or maybe not so much, do you think?
Well, it'll affect the movement a little bit, like just, their day-to-day, where they're not scavenging, but where they're eating and moving around and roosting and stuff. As far as like the biology component of it, where, their breeding season and everything like that, I'm not 100% sure, and I haven't talked with like the biologists about it, but I would think they have some sort of internal clock that they kind of go off. But, with the warmer weather, maybe that does bump it up a little bit sooner than normal. But yeah, I'm very curious to see what it's going to be like this season.
Absolutely. Speaking of the warmer weather, Jake, I've been seeing, especially like on social media and Facebook and such, wildfires or grass fires kind of going around. Everything's dry yet. We've had some windy conditions out there. I got to imagine right now for like the DNR, probably telling people, hey, don't be doing any burn barrels or grass burning right now.
Yeah, it's going to be a dry spring. There's no doubt about it. They don't have any precipitation forecasted coming up, unfortunately. So I guess a big shout out and kudos to like our forestry staff and some of the local fire departments and agencies. But, our forestry staff spends a lot of the time in the spring, kind of staged, ready on these high fire conditions. So kind of on call or standby, however you want to say it. So they spend a lot of time just being ready, and then when something happens, they respond and do a lot of good work. They got a lot of good equipment and a lot of training, and it's fun. I've been working with them in a couple of different management roles on these wildfires, like on the big ones, and just training and getting ready for them. So it's fun from a professional aspect, but I'd rather never respond to one because that means there's a fire. But yeah, so keep it. Don't be burning if you don't need to be, or make sure you follow all like the burning restrictions if they put them in place, or the different zones or township permits and like that. So just definitely a spring to be careful with.
Absolutely. Also too, I know we've mentioned this, I feel like a lot the last few weeks here too, but I mean, there's got to be some bodies of water that, don't really have any ice on anymore. I would have to imagine.
Oh yeah. I'm getting pictures of most of our lakes wide open already. And all the surrounding counties, Chippewa, Clark, obviously like the rivers, Chippewa River, Mississippi River, all that. So I think the waters are open, and we're starting to see more boats. People need to remember that even though like the water's open, doesn't mean that some of the seasons are open. We got different season closures coming up for different game fish, and then there's also the refuges that usually start around April, about a month or two before the fishing opener to help protect them while they're spawning and such. So you're going to want to start looking around for signs where there's refuges, and make sure you're not fishing in a refuge and stuff like that.
That's a good note too. It's something I feel like maybe kind of gets forgotten or overlooked from just regular fishermen out there.
Yeah, it is, and there's not a ton of refuges, especially around here, but the ones that are, they're pretty well signed. So you want to definitely check those refuges out, or look for signs when you go to some of these spots. They're going to be big yellow DNR signs that give the exact dates and how many feet from the dam or whatever, wherever the refuge is. So just make sure, because that's I don't want to say anything in the world is an automatic ticket, but when you walk right past the sign that tells you what to do or what not to do, it's kind of hard to explain your way through that.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Jake, also too, you mentioned to me maybe potential some openings at the DNR. I know sometimes we've had some questions from listeners who have asked, how do I become a DNR warden, or how do I apply for that?
Yeah, no, I'm glad you brought that up. So we don't have so what is this year? This year is 2024. So we have our 2024 class that started in January. So we haven't started the process yet for the 2025 class, but we have to go. The state's got to go through their budget and just figure out how many people we can hire and yada yada. But typically, it's usually around late March, April when we open up the hiring process. Get the applications in, and then it starts. So if you've ever had an interest in being a warden, it's a good time to either set up a ride along to see what it's about, or go to our recruiting page. So if you go to dnr.gov or dnr.wisconsin.gov, we have a big recruiting page on there that answers a lot of questions and shows a lot of videos and such. So it's a good time to kind of look at it and start getting interested or getting ready for it if you are interested, because once that application goes out, it's a long process. Most law enforcement is, but the resumes go in March, April, and it won't be till about October, November before you get a conditional offer for a job. So it's a long process, and you should be ready for it. But a lot of opportunity. Last year we hired 20 wardens, and I think this year they're looking at about the same amount, which is actually an insane amount. Mm-hmm. Usually it's anywhere from 8 to 11. So last couple of years we've been hiring a lot.
Interesting. All right. Hey, before I let you go too, since we were talking boats and such, because I just dawned on me here too, might be, even though it's an earlier part of the season, if you're getting your boat out there, because I got my renewal notice in the mail, so I gotta get that up. So just to maybe a heads up for everybody, even though it might be earlier, get those turned in.
Yeah, no, that's a great reminder. It should be March 31st when they expire. So if you have a tag that says 24 on it, it actually expires March 31st, 2024. So it's not good through the year. It's only good through March of the year. So April 1st is when you'd have to have it renewed in order to be legal on the water. And like you said and mentioned, with this open water and no more ice, what it looks like is people are going to want to get their boats out, and they're going to not be ready for the registration or the life jackets or whatever it may be. So it's a really good reminder to start looking it over and getting ready.
Absolutely. So, all right, Jake, hey, dude, we appreciate the time as always.
Yeah.
And be safe out there if you got to be involved in any grass fires or anything like that. So be safe. And we appreciate you taking some time with us this morning to update us.
No, it's always fun. So I'll talk to you guys next week. Thanks.
You got it. There you go. There's Jake Boakes for our conservation warden buddy for our Thursday outdoor tidbits. We'll take a quick break. We'll finish things up with Brandon. We've got some picks and predicts. Cream of the crop too. But you know what's not cream of the crop? This computer screen. Got to use a mouse apparently because the touch screen ain't working. So we'll do a little special Thursday edition of Cream of the Crop since Brandon's here too. All right, quick break. We'll be back to wrap up things after these few words. teams are flying off the shelves right now for the cat. What are you looking at over there? The newspaper article?
I am.
Why?
I don't know. Talking about golf?
Yeah. The reason I want to bring this up is because you were talking about, because Brandon is probably one of our biggest supporters, if not you and G-Man, for this outing. But you'll get a good group of guys that come over and teams and such. And we're going to miss Richie this year, it sounds
Well,
like.
he is moving, so he will not be there, unfortunately.
And I believe Richie's working right now, so he can't hear us. But usually Richie, too, will kind of call in when it's the Iditarod.
Yeah.
And I tweeted at him yesterday to be like, dude, you got to,
the headline.
Yeah. And he's at clinicals and such. But not often do you see the Iditarod making headlines across the sports world.
Well, besides like, hey, this person won.
Right, exactly.
This is a very specific headline that I have to imagine is only unique to the Iditarod.
Yes. So if you have not heard this, because it's on ESPN's top headlines too, but this was a story for the last couple of days. So this musher who's won this thing 5 times, I believe, he gets penalized, time penalty, for not properly gutting the moose that he killed. This is real, and this is part of the rules. So apparently, if you do have to take down a moose or bear or something like that, that person has to properly gut it out,
field dress
it, and you just can't
can't just kill and leave it.
Yeah, because I think this moose was a nuisance from what I was understanding.
Yeah,
a little bit
being
earlier.
a jerk.
Yep. Thank you. So the moose, was killed by this person, and he field dressed it, but apparently it wasn't field dressed properly because everything has to be removed from internal organs and intestines and such. So he's penalized for time penalized for this. Conveyed, I'm just reading a little bit here, imposed a 2-hour time penalty on musher Dallas Seavey for not properly gutting the moose he killed during this race. The moose did have with the dog. It says here, a veteran musher had to kill a moose after it injured one of his dogs shortly after the start of this year's Iditarod. Dallas Seavey informed the officials early Monday morning that he was forced to shoot the moose with a handgun in self-defense. This came after the moose became entangled with the dogs and the musher. So it fell on my sled. It was sprawled on a trail. Seavey told these insiders, I gutted it the best I could, but it was ugly. So not often do you see something like that, but that is a rule that if you have to, shoot a moose, you have to take care of it. And the meat was donated and it was taken care of. It was donated to and all that stuff as well.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I wanted Richie to be able to kind of chime in on that, and that would have been kind of
to give you the breakdown on proper moose gutting protocol.
Yeah. So, all right, shall we do some picks and predicts? Let's do some picks and predicts. Brought to you by the Elbow Room in Eau Claire, where Brandon himself just enjoyed a man cave light over the weekend at the Elbow Room. He sends me a message, and without an invite, though.
No,
just a picture with no invite. So that's the kind of person. If anybody wants to know who Brandon Berg is in real life, that's the kind of person he is. Sends you a picture of a cold brewski, a cold man cave light with no invite.
True.
Let's go with. Well, we might as well just start off with the Badgers. Badgers taking on Rutgers tonight. 9.5-point favorites. Final game at the Kohl Center for this year. Who do you have winning? And if it is the Badgers, do they cover?
I will take the Badgers, but I do not think they cover. I think this is an ugly game.
Yeah.
But I think they do just enough.
I want Wisconsin to dominate so much. I want them to come out and win by like 20. I don't see it, though. Like, what else? What have we seen from this Badger team the last few weeks that would give anybody the confidence that they can go out there and do that? That confidence. So I'll pick the Badgers, but yeah, I don't think it's under 10 points. It's under 9 points, I think. So, and that's not going to make me feel good heading into the tournament.
No.
Regardless of what they do in the conference tournament either. So How about this? Milwaukee at Green Bay. BW Milwaukee at Green Bay. Horizon Lee Turney, man.
I'm going to go with the Phoenix.
I'm gonna go.
That's Green Bay, if you don't know.
Yes, I know.
I'm saying for the listeners.
Milwaukee's playing really good, though. I'm going Milwaukee. Green Bay on the second. So I'm gonna go Milwaukee, riding the wave. Phoenix has been the better team overall this year, but Milwaukee's riding the wave. So I think that's about it for the college side of things.
Mhm.
I mean, now some of those leagues were kind of getting into the league tournaments and such already. So let's do some NBA games coming up here on the schedule. Just pulling it up because it froze up on me. Let's go Minnesota at Indiana.
I'm going to go with Indiana.
Karl-Anthony Towns, I just saw the updates.
Yeah.
Meniscus potentially injury. So hopefully it's not too long
Right.
over there. With that news, I think I might go Indiana too on this one. I think I'm going to go with Indiana. Let's go Miami at Dallas.
I will go Miami.
I'm going to go Dallas with this one. Let's go Boston at Denver. A fantastic game tonight.
Yes. We'll go Denver. It's tough to win in Denver.
Let me see where's it.
And
Denver's at 1.5.
And Denver's quite good.
Yeah, Denver's 24-6 at home. Boston's 48-13, but 19-10 on the road this year. They just lost to Cleveland.
And that was a game that they gave. They are up and gave up. So
I'll go Denver too because it's at home. I'll ride with Denver for that one. So, tradition unlike any other. Should we do a NASCAR pick since you're here on Friday?
let's do it. Last week,
Did you get it right?
Kyle Larson won.
Oh, how about you? Attaboy.
Inadvertently picking the odds-on favorite. I didn't know that. So
who are you going to ride with this week?
this week at Phoenix,
That is Phoenix, yes.
I'm going to go with Joey Logano.
Okay. I'm bringing up the odds, as you know.
Never tell me the odds.
He's not high on here, man.
There we go. Then I feel better about that. I don't want to pick the odds-on favorite, even though he's an accomplished driver.
I'm going to go with Ryan Blaney.
There you go.
I'll go Ryan Blaney. How about that? The odds on is Kyle Larson, it looks like. So, all right, I'll go Blaney on mine. Reminder too, if you want to watch some of the races, you can go to the Elbow Room that they got them up
Plenty
there.
of TVs.
Yes, absolutely. And then you can make some picks for racing over there too. Sweet decor up there, isn't it?
That's pretty. Yeah, it was funny because I was there with a friend of mine, and he I didn't explain it to him, but he had. He was looking around. He was, admiring all the decor. He goes, interesting. I go, why? He goes, oh, there's Packers and 49ers.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just going like, yeah. I'm just thinking to myself, like, okay, I know that background. So,
Yep.
But yeah, it's a cool setup.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So, hey, look at this, man. We got more flying off the shelf on the Kasper Classic, dude. It pays to be a member. Getting the early bird rates on there. Early bird gets the worm, baby. Yeah.
So we're actually.
I'm really catching myself from saying what it is because I got to wait till tomorrow. So,
but we are actually going live with signups earlier than last year.
We are.
I saw when I signed up last year, which was obviously at the start,
mm-hmm.
and it's
because multiple reasons, but one, people are in the golf mood right now because courses are open.
Yeah.
Right. And it's getting a head start. Make sure people can plan out their summers and such. So, but
you're saying it's during the summer?
Actually, we're gonna wait till December this year.
Okay.
And it's gonna be mini golf.
I might actually have a chance then.
You might. So, had a couple people say keep the mini title belts.
Okay.
And one said get the big ones. I don't know if they think they're gonna win it or not, but whatever. I'm waiting for maybe Illini Greg, the defending champion.
That's true.
What's his thoughts? He probably wants an upgrade?
So I think his team definitely deserves a say.
Yeah. So Illini Greg, if you're listening, do we give the defending champs a say into this? Will the defending champs be there to defend their championship? That's the other question too. Well, if he's a member of the fan cave, he would have got that email. So, but we'll see. He's feeling good about his fighting Illini right now.
Yeah.
In that in the tournament. So, all right, Brandon. when you're with us back on your normal schedule next Friday, we should know Kirk Cousins is
We should.
playing here. The Kirk Cousins-o-meter for you. Where is it at right now? Is he with the Vikings? Is he with Atlanta?
I would.
It's between those two, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
that seems to be the prevailing theory. I'm leaning towards Atlanta.
Yeah.
I think Minnesota. Well, I think specifically, General Manager Kwesi Dalfamenta kind of has how far he's willing to go,
Mm-hmm.
like as far as financially goes and time.
Mm-hmm.
But and we talked about this last week. I just think Atlanta sees this as an opportunity. Like the NFC South is down. They have a good supporting cast. I mean, that's a team that if they have competent quarterback play last year, they probably win the NFC South. You know, they've got defense. Their defense is kind of a bit of maybe of a no-name defense, but it's not bad defense.
Right.
Like if Kirk Cousins goes to Atlanta, that's immediately the favorite in that division.
I
And
agree.
you know, I at this point, I just think that's, and plus, look, and I'm not saying this as a detriment to Kirk Cousins because I think athletes generally should think this way, but like he's going to get the best deal for himself.
Yes.
You know,
Yes.
he's done that very, very well. Him and his agent should be in the Hall of Fame as far as always getting the best deal.
Mm-hmm.
But
Yeah.
I just don't think Minnesota's in that spot, nor are they comfortable being in that spot, and Atlanta can.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I think I'm leaning towards Atlanta, like 65-35.
Mm-hmm.
Like I would say 2/3 odds.
Okay. Yeah, I kind of agree with you. I just it feels like it's going to be him in Atlanta, and I feel like too he's at that age where I think obviously paid money, got to get that, but he also probably wants a ring.
Well, I think obviously there is the there's the idea of kind of what Kirk Cousins is as far as just like, oh well, he puts up good stats but he doesn't win. Like if he wants to try to bust that or change that narrative,
Mm-hmm.
his best chance to do that at this exact moment is Atlanta.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and you got Arthur Blank too, who's wanting a championship, and
Lower
he'd be willing
80s,
to pay.
willing to spend.
Yeah, exactly. So, saw Diana Rossini tweet this from The Athletic. Many GMs are approaching this free agency as the running backs, linebackers, and safety markets to be similar to the past, lower deals than we may imagine. Depressed market for those positions, a lot of one-year deals.
There's a lot of people because there's a lot of them out there.
And I'm a Packers fan, and that's some positions we need some depth at. And I'm like, yeah, cha-ching, cha-ching, Another safety got released here too, Justin Simmons from the Broncos. This I did not realize. I saw this from Adam Schefter since he's had the most interceptions in the league.
He's had the most interceptions and I think the most suspensions.
Probably at this point. I mean,
So
he's like one hit away from probably being.
That's like that's like the football version of the Gordie Howe hat trick.
Yeah. Yeah. Since entering the league in 2016, no player in NFL has had more interceptions than Justin Simmons with 30. But the thing is like, can you plan on him being out there for every game?
Right.
I mean, one of those games that he made that hit on Musgrave, I think it was, against the Packers last year, and he got suspended for games after that. So it factors into it. He's one hit away.
It has to.
It's going to be multiple games, not just going to be one repeat offender.
Right.
At that point. But you're a Packers fan, and if you're Brian Gutekunst right now, I think you're looking at this like, okay, more safeties. We need a couple here. I feel like Green Bay is going to double dip. Sign two of them. So I think the double dip, the chip thing's overrated. Not to get off on a tangent here.
I am not a fan of double dipping.
Why?
Because your mouth was on it.
If it's your own dip, though, does it matter?
But if you're, let's put it this way: if you're sharing it with people, it does.
But what if you switch the chip over? I mean, I know you're.
That's a fine line to me.
If you're relying on confidence in the other person.
If you're home by yourself, who cares? But if you're at a party,
but what if you got this huge chip? I suppose you could break it.
You're holding your hands out like it's a loaf of bread.
But no, it's like a big tortilla. Or not tortilla chip.
What kind of foot-long tortilla chip?
That's not a foot long. If you think that's a foot long.
You're like this.
I'm like this, Brad. It's like 6 inches. Sometimes those big tortilla chips. That you are over. You must be a fisherman because you're sitting there with holding like a foot long there. I'm like 6 inches like this. There's big tortilla chips like this when you go to a restaurant.
I don't know. I
mean, you could break it, but then it might be a little thin and it breaks into 4 pieces. I think if it's okay, if you switch it around, you're okay. Not the mouth part, the other part. Look at that's how we end this.
And
Bang.
strong with double dipping chip conversation.
You know, I guess I'm more George Costanza and you're the
Let's
other
put it
guy.
this way: you've been around me this last month. I've been a little ill. How would you feel if I double dipped the chip in my current state of being under the weather?
Okay, good point. There's something wrong with you, man. You're still under the weather.
I'm not under the weather. I actually feel as good as I have.
No, that's
have a
setting the bar low.
I just have a stuffy nose.
For like 4 weeks.
I have a big nose.
Brandon's mom, where's that soup?
No, I asked her not to make me soup because she's going to make me a bunch of it. And I'm going to have like 2 bowls because I don't really need it.
Put it in the freezer. Then you have it again later.
Why am I going to eat soup in the summer?
Why not? You're probably going to get sick again. You don't take care of
your
yourself,
crap.
Brandon. Oh, where's that shot clock? Okay, 10 seconds away.
Run it down.
All right. So, okay. If you haven't checked your email,
do it. Remember to
and
check
you want
your
to sign
spam.
up, yeah, check your spam. We've got. I don't want to say people's names besides Brandon's.
No, I'm
Brandon's
there. I'm already signed up, so you know that.
Yeah. So we got a couple of you out there, but check them up and sign up. Otherwise, you got to wait till tomorrow. If you want more details, if you're not a member, well, travel safe. Make sure everybody follow Brandon on Twitter for the updates on McDonald Central at state basketball. So DP and Dance, they're up next. We'll do this again tomorrow morning, just past 6. Talk to you then. I just took it out of the program. The light's still on, just to give me a couple minutes here.